starring Dorothy Malone as Constance Mackenzie, Ed Nelson as Michael Rossi, Ryan O'Neal as Rodney Harrington, Barbara Parkins as Betty Anderson, Tim O'Connor as Elliot Carson, Christopher Connolly as Norman Harrington, Patricia Morrow as Rita Harrington, James Douglas as Stephen Cord.
Rodney Harrington has just come from an angry confrontation with Stephen Cord. What began as an argument over Stephen's wife, Betty, exploded inevitably into a fist fight. A fight that was never resolved. It was interrupted by an urgent phone call from Norman, summoning Rodney to the hospital with the shattering news that Rita had suffered a sudden medical crisis. One that she might not survive.
How is she? She'll live if they let her.
She had a pulmonary edema. It's fluid in the lungs. Actually, she was virtually drowning. Now the fluid's gone, and she's back to breathing normally again.
Well, she's out of danger, then.
At the present time, I think so.
But they want to operate. Dr. Rossi and this big specialist from Boston.
Well, I asked Dr. Remmick to come in on consultation. After the examination, he recommended she have surgery.
When? Today, the quicker the better. So he can just take his fee and stuff in his pocket and go on back to Boston. Well, she was all right before he got here, before he even looked at her. Why should Dr. Remmick's trip be wasted?
Well, we had to clear the lungs before there was a possibility of surgery.
Wait a minute, Norm. Norman. Doctor, let me ask you something. You say the trouble is with Rita's lungs. I thought it was their heart.
Well, it is. You see, the operation consists of removing the scar tissue from the heart, thereby returning normal circulation.
And then she'll be all right?
Yes, if we're successful.
Oh, Norm, you hear that? Yeah, I hear it. But what if you aren't successful? She could die right there on the operating table without me even seeing her again. But you can't win them all, can you? How big a risk is it?
Well, there's always some risk involved with major surgery. And, of course, this being a heart operation, it carries a kind of ominous sound to the layman. But actually, this particular operation, the statistics are surprisingly good. Most of the patients recover completely, go on living normal, a very active life.
And if Rita doesn't have the operation?
Well, it wouldn't be so good. The edema could recur. And the next time, she may not be in a hospital where we have the facilities to take care of it. And even if it doesn't recur, then there would still be the dizziness, the shortness of breath, the heart would keep pumping at the slightest activity. Look, in short, it amounts to this. If Rita doesn't have the operation, she could very well be forced to live the rest of her life as a semi-invalid.
Boy, that's not much of a prospect. No. And this couldn't wait until after she's had her baby.
Well, you see, a pregnancy would just make greater and greater demands on her heart.
And that's why you decided to operate?
Well, actually, it's not my decision to make, nor is it Dr. Remmick's. All we can do is advise, recommend what we believe is necessary after the examination and study of her problems. The final decision, of course, rests with the patient and with the patient's family. Well, listen, I'm going to go in with Dr. Remmick in my office. Try and encourage him to make up his mind as soon as possible.
I know Dr. Remmick's got a busy schedule, so you can just tell him to forget it.
We're going to need some time to prepare Rita for the operation if there's going to be one, and also to schedule a surgery.
I'm not going to do it, so there's no sense in arguing with me. Who's arguing? We've lived with her heart before. Now all I have to do is be careful. He said the slightest thing could do it. Then we'll be very careful. You keep saying we, but it's Rita's heart, isn't it? She's the one who won't have the strength for this or be able to do that. Well, we've got each other, and that's all that's important. There's no guarantee you do. Her condition could get worse anyway. If it gets to that, if Rita can't live without the operation, then I'll have to say yes, but not now. But by that time, Norman, it might be too late. Dr. Rossi said that if she has another attack, he might not be able to save her. If. You can't go on ifs.
Dr. Mitchell. Dr. Mitchell. Call the desk, please. Has Dr. Rossi talked to Rita?
No, not yet.
Norm. Is it because of the baby?
No. Rita could have the baby and maybe no babies. But I'd trade 100,000 babies for her. Rod, I can't live without her.
Okay, so you don't have the operation. And Rita goes ahead and has the baby. That could do it, you know. You might have a nice, happy, healthy baby and no mother.
Yeah. Well, then I could say yes and have nothing.
Well, the statistics are in her favor.
Statistics. It's just a fancy word for gambling. I'm not going to gamble with her life.
I think you're gambling if you say no.
I'm not going to say yes, and you can't make me.
I'm not trying to make you. It's your decision.
How do you decide for somebody else, Rod? Someone that you love.
I don't know. You just do what you think is right. Pray that it is.
I want to say no. But I can't.
Well, then tell Dr. Rossi.
Come with me.
Sure.
What happened to your face?
Oh, it's nothing. Come on.
Come in.
Hey, not too much of that now.
I'm so thirsty. Just one more sip.
That'll be all for now.
No more fluid intakes, Miss Triplett.
I'll put it on our chart.
Well, you look like you've gone 10 rounds.
But you knew I'd win. No, don't look like that.
Well, you gave me a pretty bad scare.
I know, but it's over. Tell him, Dr. Rossi.
Well, we managed to take care of the edema.
See? So smile, silly.
Rita, of course, you realize that that was just a symptom. We were hoping that with a lot of bed rest, well, your heart would start behaving itself again. And since it didn't do that, we're going to have to look for another answer.
Go on.
Well, the best thing would be to have your own heart functioning normally again. And we can do that by removing the scar tissue. The scar tissue that caused all the trouble.
You're talking about an operation.
Mm-hmm. A closed mitral valvulotomy. Sometimes it's easier to perform than it is to pronounce.
No.
Rita, listen to me. Dr. Remmick is a specialist. The doctor I brought in to examine you earlier. He refers to a closed mitral valvulotomy almost as routine surgery.
Sure, just like having my tonsils out.
Well, it's a lot more than that, but not much more.
Norm,
You take bigger chances by getting in the car with me. Dr. Rossi's got the figures.
I'm not interested in the figures. You knew about this, didn't you?
Well, we went over and over it. I wasn't that easy to convince.
But you said yes.
I had to. I don't want to take the chance of losing you, Rita.
What about the baby? What about my baby?
Rita, the pregnancy was always a strain on your heart. It would become more and more a strain as the baby grows.
That's not what I asked. You lied to me. You brought me to this hospital because you told me you were concerned about my baby.
Now, wait a minute. I was concerned.
About my heart.
I was concerned about your baby, and I was concerned about your heart. Look, I never once distorted the truth just to please you. I never took you and patted you on the head and said, there, little girl. I told you I was concerned about the baby. Well, I was. Now we're talking about your heart. Rita, look at me. You're not going to die. Believe me.
Why should I? At least let me say goodbye. Did you get out? Dr. Rossi? When is the operation?
Oh, I don't know. How about, this afternoon?
This afternoon. We've got all kinds of time. Norm, did Dad leave? He came here last night to tell me goodbye.
No, I think he's still in the hospital.
You think?
I mean, I know he is.
Would you tell him I want to see him?
Sure. Now, come on. Everything's gonna be all right.
How do you say goodbye?
You don't. You just say, I'll see you later.
Mary?
I'm sorry, Mr. Harrington, but Mr. Cord doesn't want to be disturbed.
Well, he sent for me. He asked me to drop by.
Well, I don't know what to say.
Say I'm here.
Mr. Harrington...
It's all right, Mary. Mary, just leave that alone.
But I haven't even gotten to the living room.
We'll leave it till later.
Yes, sir.
Did you get my message?
I've been out all day.
I canceled your appointment.
Stephen, I'm not some office boy you can summon and dismiss with a wave of your hand. Well, that's a nasty bruise.
Oh, send me a get-well card.
Oh, no wonder you didn't want me here.
I'll take care of our business tomorrow.
Redecorating or spring cleaning?
Goodbye, Leslie.
Well, this answers my question. You didn't run into a door.
As long as you're here.
Who was it, Stephen? An irate client tired of your way with words and deciding to take a little direct action?
I've added a rider to the Bristol Fabric Agreement. Mary?
What would your grandfather say? Turning his living room into a junk man's paradise.
Initial all 4 copies.
Cord residence. Yes, Mrs. Cord? Mr. Harrington? He's in the living room.
Wrong, Harrington.
Betty?
I want Rod.
Yes, I'm sure you do.
I know he's there.
Well, I'm sorry he's not here.
Well, where can I reach him?
Try the hospital.
You put Rod in the hospital.
I didn't say that.
Just made it sound that way, huh?
Look, just leave the papers on the table.
Turning your back on me and running up those stairs won't get rid of me, Stephen. One, you and Rod had a slam-bang, knock-down brawl, probably over Betty. Number 2, Betty called to see how Rod was. I don't know what pleases me more, the fact that Rod and Betty are getting together or that he took you apart.
Or that you're getting closer to my grandfather's money.
As administrator of the estate, I'll do my level best to look after their interests.
And line your pockets.
What will you do, Stephen? Admit defeat? Bow out gracefully? No. You'll sit up here in this dust heap like some petty Peyton, striving for ways to keep them apart. Well, you may have the old man's house, but you don't have his style.
Well, they're not married yet.
Tell me something, Stephen. If it were anyone but Rod, would you be holding on like this?